Antoinette Lee, welcome to the Nervous Apes podcast.
Hi, Asher. It's so great to be with you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So fantastic to have you. You and I appeared mutually on a podcast together, a Week's podcast, and I just fell in love with your story. And I know that other people are too. And I so look forward to diving into your story and also giving people as much as we can um, actionable steps that they can take to make their lives better along the way. So
Absolutely.
I want to introduce you by reading your bio, at least parts of your bio, because you have such an interesting life experience, such a breadth of experience. Antoinette is a polymath with legitimate high level competence across science, military, arts, business, media, nonprofit leadership, wilderness skills, and inspirational communication, all while living these messages in real time. After a traumatic brain injury, spine damage, and severe PTSD, Antoinette hit rock bottom in 2014. Unable to eat or drink for 5 weeks, reliant on a walker, service dog, and a full time caregiver, preparing to die before her fifth surgery. Today, she's a sponsored adventure sportswoman, outdoor industry influencer, health and wellness columnist at Cultures Magazine, with 1.5 million readers, which is incredible, in 200 plus countries. Motivational speaker and host of the New Normal Big Life podcast, which is actually up and running right now, which is fantastic. She traded the walker for whitewater kayaks, mountain trails, and a thriving homestead life in the North Woods with her family and now semi-retired service dog Phoebe. She was an air assault qualified expert field medic trained in anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, imaging, general dentistry, and infection control and disease prevention. She's a former tech CEO, outdoor industry influencer, and author of the forthcoming memoir, 4 Hours to Live. When's that coming out?
Well, I don't know. I have
Okay.
some publishers who want to publish me. I'm not quite sure they are the right fit, so I'm
Okay.
still looking.
Yeah, well, I wish you the best in that endeavor.
Thank you.
Uh, I would imagine putting a memoir together is quite the journey.
It really was. It really just started out as writing for myself and
Mm,
then reading it out loud to other people
mm.
prompted me, they encouraged me to publish it.
So you're into so many things. I mentioned some of them in the intro, and some of them we will touch base on also that I didn't mention yet, like the magazines that you're associated with, the outdoors groups that you're associated with. I want to hear about all of it. But I'm really curious with all the things that you do, what in the world gets you up in the morning? What is your why that is driving you so much?
Oh wow, that's such a brilliant question. And it's hardly ever asked of me. But the thing that gets me up in the morning is the outdoors.
Doors.
It's essential to my good health. And it also is a way that I connect with other humans face to face. So the outdoors, whether it's a brutally cold -10-degree day like today here in the North Woods with several feet of snow accumulated, or it's a warm summer day, I love getting outside.
Have you always lived that way, like you are now in the North Woods, or were you a city girl at some point? What's that look like?
Oh, I was such a nerd in in high school and well throughout my life really. I was a nature nerd always.
Mm,
And my family didn't understand it because they are very posh people.
mm.
From age 15 to 16, my sisters and I all went to debutante school to learn how to be a lady. And that did actually come into good use when I was a corporate executive, right? Because I
Sure.
didn't grow up wealthy. So knowing etiquette was really important at that level, but I really just wanted to be outdoors. But I lived in New York City in a neighborhood
Ah,
where everyone just wanted to look pretty and show off the things that their parents could afford to buy. And I was the kid who was always covered in mud.
hmm.
But both my parents grew up on farms, one in South Carolina, one in Virginia. And I spent a lot of time on my mom's family farm in
Mm.
Virginia, barefoot, riding horses bareback, hunting
Nice.
and fishing and farming. And that was my connection to nature. But I was also an athlete and I did a lot of running in the city. So getting outside and being physical was just in my DNA.
Yeah. It's interesting because it seems to me that it's really in all of our DNA, right? But we lose contact with it, and I didn't notice this until recently. I lived in Houston for since I was 13 years old. I'm 49 now, but it was 3 years ago that I moved into the country. Not quite the way you are, but more country than I have chickens in the backyard and playing that game and trying to figure all that out. But I just found that once I got out here, I just can't go back to the city anymore. I have to go back because I still work in the city, but just twice a week. But it's something changes in you, or at least it did in me once I got out here. Um, when I go into the city now, I get like this pit in my stomach. It just doesn't feel good to be there. It feels like this is not where we're meant to be. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I live in a forest in the woods. This is my actual cabin behind
Yeah.
me.
Cool.
And when I go to the city, which probably has about, I don't know, less than 15,000 people, it feels very overwhelming. And it's not
Mm,
really a city, it's like a big town.
yeah.
And I think it's because your nervous system just gets so activated by all of the sights and sounds and movement and noise. And we don't really realize it when we live amongst that human made pollution all the time. It's only when you step away from it that you realize, wow, I am
Yeah.
overwhelmed by sensory overload.
It actually shocked me to where I just had no clue that it would have that effect on me moving into the country, right? I've come to the conclusion that we are literally not made for the concrete jungle of the city. We're supposed to be in nature. And I read recently, it's so fascinating to me. We all know that if we live in a city and we go to the woods for camping or whatever for vacation, that it makes us feel better. But we don't really know why. We just have this intuitive sense, oh, I'm better. It feels good, right? But I read recently about these things called phytoncides that the trees emit, right, as protection and also communication that have a direct impact on us. We inhale those phytoncides when we are in the country, and it has a direct positive impact on our immune system. And we keep ourselves from experiencing that benefit by being in the city way too much.
That's absolutely correct. And there's a whole lot of science behind why we feel good when we're in nature. Yet
Hmm.
the sad truth is that, and this is actually an increase since 2020, but only 60% of Americans go outside and adventure, whether they
Mm-hmm.
adventure in the city, near their homes, the suburbs, or in the backcountry. Only 60% of us, and that's an, like I said, an increase. And there is an economic divide because the vast majority of people, in fact, the majority of households who do recreate earn a six-figure income. So
Oh,
$100,000 a year or more. So people on a budget are being priced out of the health and social benefits of outdoor sports and outdoor recreation.
yeah. It sounds like you're a big advocate that even if you are living in a city, that you do whatever you can to get out, even if it's just go outside for a walk. Even if you can't get into a beautiful park in the middle of the city that has trees, just get outside as much as you can. But if you do have access in whatever capacity, to take a couple of days and go out into the woods, it's medicine and to some degree.
It really is. And if I could take a moment to kind of talk about that,
Sure.
trees don't just provide shade, they give off a whole cocktail of health enhancing chemicals. Like you were
Hmm.
mentioning,
Baton sides.
phytoncides
Yeah.
and antimicrobial volatiles like alpha pinene and limonene. So when you're just in a forest, you don't even have to do anything special. You could sit down and just meditate. You could walk around and just observe nature. But you're taking in these volatile organic compounds that the trees naturally emit and the additional oxygen that they give off. And so when you take a deep breath in, you're outside in nature, especially in a forest, and it smells very earthy. Those are those beneficial chemicals that the trees are giving off. That's
Yeah,
that earthy smell. And the reason that the trees have these chemicals, it's because it protects the trees from insects and fungi and bacteria. And
mm,
you're also breathing in these protective chemicals. And
that's
that's
beautiful.
the feel good. That's one of the feel good aspects of why it's so beneficial to even just go stand under that single tree in an urban street. and
Yeah.
and like in New York City, all the trees have the bark is encased in metal, and it's like one tree for a mile. If you go standard under that single tree in your city, you're boosting your immunity, you're
Mm.
calming down your nervous system, and you're doing something good for your body.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned the sun yet, right? We're just talking about the trees and the plants right now. But if you add the sun on top of that, I try most days of the week. I sit in my backyard and facing the chickens and enjoy a book, sitting in a chair and just basking in the sun for 10 to 15 minutes. And I find that that is just so beneficial.
It really is. And the vitamin D that we get from natural sunshine is something that you really need in your body. It helps with heart regulation, mood, and also bone density. So if
Mhm.
you're worried about as you age, you might get a fracture, get your vitamin D, preferably naturally by being outside in the sun. But as you know, in winter, especially where I live in the frozen lands, we don't get a lot of sunlight. So a person like me with dark skin, I need, and I know this because I supplement my vitamin D, even
Mhm.
though I get daily sunlight, and then I have my doctor test it. And so to
Mm,
be at my optimal level of vitamin D, I have to take 600 international units
mm,
of vitamin D. That's
mm.
6 pills of vitamin D3 just to be at the normal level for healthy people, not the normal level for sick people. And there is a distinction of vitamin D. So it's very important to first get tested, start taking your vitamin D supplements, make sure that it's lab tested and it's made from naturally derived vitamin D, because if it's synthetic vitamin D, if it was created in the lab, your body has a difficult time absorbing it. It's not as bioavailable to you. So you want natural sources of vitamin D as much as possible.
And my understanding too is if you have dark skin, um, you're going to need something like 3 times more exposure to vitamin D from the sun than someone like me with much lighter skin. Does that resonate as true with you?
Yes, it is. And it's because people with dark skin generally are in climates that get a lot more sunshine. And as a protective measure, the melanin in our skin protects us from the harmful effects of the sun's rays. So if you are not getting high exposure to vitamin D because there's not a lot of sunshine or you don't go outside a lot and you have dark skin, it's one of a lot of doctors are saying it's one of the reasons that black and brown women are developing breast cancer at a higher rate. There are a
Mm,
lot of other reasons, like your toxic load, and
mm.
um, the other thing is, gosh, I can't think of the word right now, but
It's all good.
but yeah, your toxic load and not getting enough vitamin D are two huge reasons that there's an increase in cancer in people of color.
So how did you get to this point where you're interested in all of these things? What was your childhood like? What was your trajectory as far as life is concerned? And then hit the military a little bit. And what happened after the military?
Wow, what led me to be the person I am today? Well, I was the oddball in my family, the only one who truly loved the outdoors. And, I took a lot of bullying from my siblings. They would say to me, "Why can't you just be normal? You're making us look bad. You're always sweaty and smelly and dirty, and like, go change your clothes." I don't want to I want to pretend I'm not your sister right now. And that kind of, there was a lot of shame around just
Yeah.
being who I am, which is a person who loves the outdoors. And I had to fight for my time outside. And it kept me from being truly who I am. So fast forward, life is very interesting this way. The thing that you resist, but it's your kind of innate, authentic self, is the thing that comes out eventually. So, fast forward, I go into the military and I was part of the staff sergeant mafia. If you need something done, but you don't want to know how it gets done, you just call a staff sergeant and we'll make it happen. And I was also, through some of my career, a medic. So I
Mm,
was rappelling down a mountain in Korea, and I was going to give aid to someone who had gotten injured. The same circumstances that injured him injured me. And I suffered a traumatic brain injury, broken back, and tore some tendons in my shoulder.
mm.
And I initially recovered pretty well after occupational therapy, speech therapy, and recreational therapy to regain full function. But then something happened. In my 30s, I started to develop arthritis from my neck to my tailbone. I started forgetting words. I couldn't make sentences. I couldn't even Google something because I didn't have the ability to formulate the question, like, how do I start my car? I remember one day I was a corporate executive and I got in my car and I didn't know how to start it. And then after pushing all kinds of buttons, it push started. I was getting ready to take off and I got down the street and I couldn't remember the rules of the road. I saw a stop sign and I'm like, I'm supposed to do something. I don't know what it is. I had to turn around and go home. And that was kind of the start. Within just maybe 90 days, I was fully debilitated using a walker, a full time caregiver, and a service dog.
So what was that? What was going on? And that's a terrible that's a terrifying start, right? You called that the start to that kind of second chapter of your journey in terms of the injuries that you experienced. What was causing that? What was going on?
Well, that's an interesting question. The doctors don't know. No one does. Um, because so if you're out there and you have a lot of health challenges, lots of symptoms that overlap, it could be this, it could be that. Because I had such a complex case of overlapping symptoms and diagnoses, they're not fully sure what caused it.
Mm,
The traumatic brain injury has a lot of potential, um, down, years down the line effects that we don't quite yet understand fully. So some of it was from the traumatic brain injury, some of it was from a lupus-like autoimmune disease, and they
mm,
call it lupus-like because it has like 4 or 5 of the 6 lupus markers, but not fully lupus.
mm.
Um, I had to have 4 surgeries, actually 5 surgeries. I was getting ready to have my 5th surgery, and I thought, I'm not going to survive to this 5th surgery. I think it had been 6 to 8 weeks before I could eat any solid foods. I was wasting away. And I woke up one day and I was looking down on my body, my service dog at my side. She wouldn't leave me. She looked like she was saying goodbye. She wouldn't leave for any reason, not even for food, which is unusual. And I told my caregiver, I calmly said, I think something's wrong. And, it was the middle of the night. And, you really don't want to go to a hospital on a weekend holiday or the middle of the night. So we were waiting until the next day. In my head, I was thinking, I'm not going to make it till the next day. But I had this peace about it. And it was
Mm.
because I wasn't afraid to die because I had lived my life as a good human being. Of course, with flaws and faults like everyone else. But I think the most important thing is that we are good to other people and we do our best to stick to that as often as we can, as well as we can. And I had done that. And so I was kind of like, God, if it's your will that I'm supposed to go today, then thank you for the life I've had, because, I've known success. I've loved and been loved. I've traveled the world. I've had all the awards and accolades and lots of accomplishments. Sure, I was very young. I hadn't even reached 50 yet. And I wanted to live longer, but if it's my time, I'm at peace with it. But if you give me one more day, I said, I'm going to figure out why I'm so sick and I'm going to help other people. And I knew instinctively that it was that I needed to reconnect to nature.
Ah, so you had lost that connection over a period of time?
Yes, especially in tech, there is no time to get outside. I get to work, it's dark. I leave, it's dark. My weekends are consumed. I literally left my office one day. I was also had a contract with the government where I was a tech consultant, and I didn't even tell my administrative assistant where I was going. And the government found me on the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere and sent the barista from the local coffee shop to go tell me, we need you on a plane. And I'm like, how did you find me? And they're
Uh,
like, we're the Center for Information Dominance. If we can't find you, we shouldn't be in business. I'm like, fair
yeah.
enough.
Yep. Yep. So on this podcast, we talk about the human condition, essentially, right? And you're talking about some really incredible insights. That's a huge insight to recognize in the moment. Well, first of all, you have a couple of things. You're getting ready for this fifth surgery, and you are feeling like there's no way I'm going to wake up tomorrow, right? After this surgery. And you kind of resigned to that fact and or that thinking, and you reflected on your life and you felt like, you know what, I've done good here. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I did my best to be a good person. And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you recognize that, there's like this release, and maybe there was some contraction before then, and then there's like, I'm okay, regardless of what happens. Did I get it right at all? Am I close? What was that
You
like?
you were spot on. At first, there's
Mm,
this, oh my
hmm
gosh, I'm gonna die, and then it's like, but it's all good. I've been a good person. I'm going to a good place. Okay,
mm,
what's next? But if
mm.
you give me more time, here's what I'm gonna do with it. That's
Yeah,
really how I was. But you know what?
you're a good
It
negotiator.
that that right there.
You were about to
But
say, you said, you know what?
you know what? If you are the kind of person who has some regrets about maybe you're not using your time on this earth wisely in terms of creating your own happiness, creating your own new normal, living your own big life, or maybe you have regrets because you haven't done well by someone, or maybe you need to apologize or you need to forgive someone so that you can move on with your life. If you're feeling that way, we don't ever know when it's our last breath. So I encourage you today to make the apologies, give the forgiveness. Think about what your new normal would look like if there were no constraints on your life. If you didn't have to care about what people would think about you or say about you, if you didn't have to worry about how you were going to afford it, where you were going to live, who you would surround yourself with, if you just give yourself the freedom to envision what your new normal could be, how happy you could be, how healthy you could be, how successful you could be, and write it down because those are the goals you'll keep, you could have a big life. And when I did that, the day after I got out of my sick bed, thinking that I wasn't even going to make it to that next day, I wrote down those goals.
Mm.
4 years later, I was living the exact life that I envisioned. And I met the love of my life down by the river. And last Sunday, or 2 Sundays ago, I got engaged and we're getting.
Ah, congratulations. Beautiful. I love that story. So was reconnecting with nature the medicine that you expected it to be?
Yes, I knew instinctively that all of my training in the allopathic world, you read my biography, my military experience included a lot of allopathic type training. And I relied on that. And I also relied on the advice that my expert doctors were giving me. I saw some of the top specialists in the country. It's not that their advice and recommendations were wrong. It was a missing component. And thankfully, Health and Human Services just announced that every medical school in the country will have to begin training their doctors on the diet or eating component, what we put in our mouths in terms of supplements and foods and water, and the importance of that in our lifestyle changes toward good health and longevity. That's a game changer because
Yeah.
doctors didn't know that. They still don't know. When I go into a doctor and I talk about the metabolic process, well, they can talk about it in terms of diagnosis and
Mm.
a pill or a surgery or a therapy treatment, but they can't explain why it works, how it works. I actually know more than they do. And
Hmm.
sometimes they get a little upset with me when I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to listen to that because you are wrong. And I'll
Yeah.
just give you an example.
Hmm.
A doctor told me that your C reactive protein, your inflammation markers are high. And that's a very dangerous place to be for any human being because chronic widespread inflammation is the major contributing factor in things like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all of these sort of lifestyle preventable diseases. So when your doctor says your C reactive protein or other inflammation markers are high, and they tell you, I'm going to put you on a medication, you're like, yes, because I need to fix this right away. I said, pump your brakes, doc. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go boost my glutathione with these phototherapy patches, and I'm going to come back to you in 30 days. And if I haven't made a change, then I'll consider the medication. I came back in 30 days and reduced my inflammation markers by 20 points.
Mm.
And that
Wow.
was good enough to get me out of the danger zone. And I did it naturally. So, this is why I created the podcast because I wanted to effectively use allopathic conventional medicine, conventional Western medicine, along with ancient practices from all kinds of traditions from Africa and India and China, for example, and the United States. And I also wanted to add natural medicine. So it's difficult to do that with your allopathic doctor because a lot don't know enough to help support you through that. So I encourage you to look for doctors who will support you on that path because I've been able to correct a thyroid imbalance with 1 drop of iodine every day versus taking a medication that could have some side effects that could make me sick. And by the way, one of the reasons I was in that sick bed is because 6 of the 20 medications that I was prescribed caused kidney failure.
Wow.
So so I twice almost died because of the damage to my kidneys that doctor said, sorry, you can never reverse this. And I said, I'm going to find a natural way to reverse it. And so
Mm.
through a daily lemon water detox, and I can tell you about my morning routine, I reverse kidney damage.
Wow. Let's get into that routine, that morning routine. I'm really curious about that.
Okay. I love this question. So, a couple of things. Because I'm a brain injury survivor, memory and attention and focus is really difficult for me. And one of the things I used to recover my ability to speak and focus attention was archery. Archery
Mm.
retrains your brain. It's a neuroplasticity retrains your brain for things that require focus, like this conversation. And then I used my walker to roll myself into a heated pool to learn how to whitewater kayak. And in 3 months, I was out on the river whitewater kayaking
Hmm.
like everyone else. So my morning routine does two things: it supports my brain, it balances my electrolytes,
Hmm.
and it gives me physical and mental energy for the day. So the first thing that I do is you want to finish off that metabolic process that starts from the moment you have your last meal to the time you have your next, or till 1 hour after you've waken up from
Hmm.
your sleep. So finishing off that metabolic process means no foods during that 1 hour after you wake up. And that will keep your ability to quickly digest food and use calories rather than storing it for fat as fat throughout your day. So I do a water mixture of 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, half a lemon squeezed into the glass, 4 pinches of Celtic sea salt or Himalayan sea salt, any type of sea salt, and then 8 ounces of room temperature water. The room temperature water makes everything that you're taking in more bioavailable, meaning that you use it instead of eliminating it out through waste. Then I go outside, even on a -10-degree day like today, and I drink that water. I don't put on a heavy coat. I put on a light jacket
Hmm.
even when it's cold, because cold exposure reduces inflammation, improves your mood, and a whole lot of other things. So I give myself that cold exposure, drink, slowly slip my glass of water while I look towards the sun, taking in sunlight through my eyes and face. And that's how I start my day.
Beautiful. I
I
love
also
that.
end my day the same way.
Okay. So the exact same way. So having a break, making what how long is your break between your last meal, ideally, between your last meal and bedtime?
Uh, well, and bedtime,
Hmm.
I'd say probably 6 to 8 hours, and
Mm,
I try not to eat before 12 hours until 12 hours have passed. So,
gotcha.
kind of an intermittent fasting, which part of my brain injury gave me. I developed chronic low blood sugar. So I really
Mm,
have to manage my blood sugar. My brain sends a bad signal to my body, my pancreas, and it releases too much insulin. So,
interesting.
one of the ways that I regulated that insulin is through that 12-hour fast,
Gotcha.
and also not having any solid foods until I've been awake for 1 hour. And then the
Oh, keep
creatine
going. I'm sorry.
monohydrate, sorry, the
That's all good.
creatine monohydrate is a recommendation that I learned from one of the experts on my podcast,
Mm,
a neurologist. And he recommends 5 grams in the morning, 5 grams at night. And I noticed it's also helping me sleep really
hmm.
well.
Got that. I had never heard of dosing once in the morning, once in the evening. I'm gonna add that to my regimen. I
Yeah,
love
here
this.
there's some science behind it. Here's the reason. Your body has a maximum saturation level for how much creatine monohydrate it can absorb at one time. Some people can absorb all 10 grams at a time. Most people can't. So you break it up in that way. Instead of eliminating what you can't absorb, you're taking in that full 10 grams throughout the day.
I like that, and it makes sense too that there's benefit to having the creatine in the evening also, so that you actually have creatine in your body for the full 24-hour cycle, right?
Right. And also, the creatine in your body is repairing your brain while you're in REM sleep. And that's your biggest restorative period of the day.
So I'm really curious. We talk a lot on this podcast about breathing and meditation. Did you incorporate any breathing practices, meditative practices, in particular during your recovery, or do you have a practice currently that you absolutely love?
Wow, I have several. So it turns out, and I'm going to talk about this in an upcoming episode, but it turns out most of us in the Western world, except for indigenous people are breathing all wrong. So even in your yoga practice, they'll tell you inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And that can be very beneficial to calm down your fight or flight response. It relaxes your nervous system. However, one of the reasons that we in Western cultures have so many sinus problems is because we are breathing too often through our mouths and not through our nose. And we also often eat a lot of soft foods. And so, eating those soft foods, breathing through your mouth, it makes your sinus passages start to get smaller and smaller, more inflamed. All kinds of issues start to develop, and then you are not getting good breath in. The other problem is we're not fully exhaling the carbon dioxide out. So if you don't take a full exhale, and when you're breathing and you're running really hard, and people will start to breathe faster instead of deeper. If you exhale fully, then on your next breath, you're getting more oxygen into your body to oxygenate your muscles and your brain and circulating throughout your body. So it's really the exhale is more important than the inhale. So one of my practices is when I'm meditating, of course, I do the in through the nose, out through the mouth. When I am relaxing my nervous system with intention, I'll take I'll inhale for 5 seconds in through the nose and exhale for 5 seconds out also through the nose.
Mm.
And then if you want to develop your cardio even more, do that while you're walking. It's super hard, but your lungs will get stronger, your cardio will improve, you'll burn more calories, and you're doing something good for your sinuses.
Love it. Love it. Look, I could spend 3 hours with you easily and probably
I
have
know
more to
we have
talk about.
such a great vibe. I
I
was
love it.
so excited to meet you. For the
Awesome.
listeners, we were in the
Likewise.
green room getting ready to do a podcast together, and we just clicked so much that the host had to tell us to be quiet so he can start the show.
Yep. Yeah, I'm so glad we got this opportunity. I really appreciate you being here, but I want to respect your time and go ahead and end at this point. But thank you so much. Can you
Thank
let
you for
everybody
having me.
know right now the best way to get a hold of you or to get into your current work in terms of the magazines and the blog?
Sure. So I am a health and wellness columnist for Cultures, Culturs magazine. You can find me at culturesmag.com. You can also find me at NNBL blog. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get expert tips direct to your inbox. And I have a special guest for your listeners. I'm going to provide you with a link to an ebook. It's 44 episodes of expert advice from some of the top experts, health and wellness experts in the country from my 2025 interviews, all of their key takeaways in step-by-step plans. Every episode of my podcast comes with a step-by-step plan. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll have access to all of them. And if you're interested in learning more about this topic of the health and social